Hey, good morning. Scott Luton, Greg White here with you on Supply Chain. Now, welcome to today's live stream. Gregory, how we doing?
I'm doing well. Had a little camera issue just a few minutes ago, but we seem to have survived it.
Yes. Well, hey,
Thank
it's
goodness for
year
the iPad.
right. It's year end, right? We're kind of one foot in holiday mode and one foot still making it happen here at Supply Chain Now, engaging with all of our friends across global trade. And Greg, so these kind of things can happen. Here's one thing I'm kind of expecting. I'm wondering if you've got a surprise coming at me from that open door just over your right shoulder. it's, it's
Surprise, there's a Chiefs jersey in there.
I
And a
love it.
microphone stand.
So no band, no special guests.
No, right? These are
Okay,
parts of
darn.
the studio that are not meant to be seen, but this camera tells
Well,
all.
we'll blame it on the
You want me
holiday
to shut
mode.
it? Would you feel more comfortable?
We'll blame it on the holiday mode. So,
Monsters
folks,
Inc. is going to come out of that closet.
Monsters Inc. Great movie. Hey, so today, folks, if you can't already tell, special edition of the Supply Chain Buzz here today. So typically, as y'all know, we dive into the leading news of the day, right? Some of the stories you just got to check out. And we may touch on a couple of those, but on this show here today, as we approach the end of the year and as we're deep in holiday mode, we're going to be sharing, Greg and I, some of our favorite episodes and conversations from the year that was 2021. Only 10 more days, 11 more days in what's been a really challenging but successful year for many organizations, including our team here. So buckle up and get ready because we want to hear from you as well. So, Greg, any words of wisdom here on the front end? As you know the shows. You and I both know some of those that we're going to walk through. How would you preface today's show?
What I like, I think what we like, yeah, I mean, it really is just some shows and some themes and some lessons and some wisdoms that we really latched onto over the last year, right? And some came from surprising places. The accumulation of some as we were going over these was pretty encouraging to me.
Agreed.
So many of our favorite episodes had women supply chain professionals, and that just jumped out at me as we were kind of looking through a bunch of these episodes for things that were informative or inspiring throughout the year. So
Agreed.
Not that we didn't give the guys a shot. We gave them a shot, but
well, so we
actually took a shot. I mean,
they did. And if they didn't, they wanted their shot. Yes.
Right.
Greg White. Well, hey, folks, again, we got to couch this the right way. These are some of our favorites. Some folks joining us maybe in the skybox seats also had some wonderful episodes. It's really tough to pare down. But again, this isn't our top 6 list, or it's not our all-time favorites. It's just some of our favorites and some
what
special
struck us
ones
in the moment, really, right? I mean,
yeah.
Not to exclude anybody, because they're all a hell of a lot of fun and always informative, but just in the moment, you're passing through. How many episodes did we do, Scott?
Ooh, that's
100, 200 episodes this year. And you just kind of look at one and you go, oh yeah, that really struck me, right?
Yes, I agree with you. That's a great question. So Amanda or Jada, it'd be great to hear 2 numbers, and you can guesstimate how many shows do we do for Supply Chain Now, and then how many shows do we do across all properties. So
Amanda's probably got that number in her head. So,
maybe.
Right.
So we'll circle back and see.
This one.
But in the meantime, so I want to share a couple of quick programming notes. We're going to say hello to some dear friends that are in the skyboxes in the comments. First up, Tools Group and Optimus. We got a webinar featuring them both on January 13th, focused on, Greg, practical strategies for adapting to not just demand uncertainty, but supply uncertainty. Quite a balance that goes on every minute of the day, right?
It is. And, for so many years in supply chain, we focused on forecasting demand and we forgot about all of the other things. We've got to forecast supply, of course, the risk. We've got to forecast that, and we've got to constantly monitor those things. So more and more of these scientific tools, like the group at Tools Group, scientific tools, more and more of those tools are coming to the fore. And I know a lot of the folks at Tools Group, or know of them anyway. I used to compete against them, and I wonder, it'll be interesting to have this discussion. I wonder if they feel like the last many years have been quite a slog convincing people to use technology in their supply chain, and now somehow the dam is broken. I feel like if not broken, it's at least cracking, and right.
It's really making
starting to recognize technology.
It's making the beavers mad. We got to get the beavers back to work to fix these dams, right? But hey, I love Tools Group motto: be ready for anything. So join Tools Group and Optimus and Greg and I on January 13th as we talk about practical strategies, which I always also love that was deliberately put into the title. Okay, so that's January 13th at 3 p.m. Eastern time. And then just a few days later, we've got, look, I've got Jeremy Bodenhammer's Underoos. I mean, he is a dynamo, folks. I'm a big fan. We're going to feature him and Shiphawk talking about Adapt or Die, your survival guide for modern warehouse automation. And Greg, you've seen Jeremy in action. He brings just a little bit of passion to the table, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think, and what they're doing at Shiphawk is really powerful as well. So be interesting to hear a little bit about what they're doing from a solution standpoint.
Agreed. January 18th at our normal webinar time, 12 noon Eastern time. To attend, you got to register for them both. But hey, good news. Unlike the rest of your holiday bills, there's no charge to join us for these webinars. So join us on the 13th.
This will not add to your credit card statement. That is correct.
Right, man. Consumers are wearing capes as they spend us all forward, getting through into the new year for sure.
Spend forward,
right? So, and I can tell with the way you're laughing, I bet you and Vicky both are doing your part, right?
I think we're done doing our part. How about that?
Oh, I love that. I love that.
Yeah, and I mean, we somehow were able to find most everything that we wanted to give. So
we're gonna get a special guest, I think, maybe.
Oh.
So you never know. And on that note, big thanks to Amanda and Jada and the whole team behind the scenes helping to make production happen. To that point, Greg, 252 episodes on the main channel here in 2021. So 252 episodes. How about that?
All without breaking a sweat.
Right. All without breaking a sweat.
Condition we're in.
Well, let's say hello to a few folks before we get into some of our favorite episodes. I want to start with Eddie Brasher, who's tuned in from Memphis via LinkedIn. Eddie, great to see you here today. Looking forward to hearing your take on some of the things we're going to be talking about. Inez?
When I think of Memphis, I think a lot of people probably think of FedEx, but when I think of Memphis, only one word comes to mind.
I thought you were going to say barbecue. You said it. You said something even better.
Food in that town. Yes,
I'm with you. Ines is tuned in from Tunisia, no pun intended, via LinkedIn. Great to see you, Ines. Looking forward to your takes here today. Hey, Greg, Max is back with us from Mexico via LinkedIn. Remember Max?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and he's probably much warmer than we are right now. Well, It depends. I mean, if he's I forget. He's not in Mexico City, correct? Monterrey,
I don't know.
Is that right?
I think you may be right. I don't think he is in Mexico City. So Max, tell
you
us.
Got to straighten us up. Where are you?
That's right. But I don't mind. I'm enjoying the departures. I'm pointing out my window to colder weather here in the Atlanta area. So good stuff. Gene Pledger from North Alabama is tuned in today once again via LinkedIn. Have enjoyed, speaking of great episodes, he was on Supply Chain is Boring with Chris Barnes, dropping some great knowledge around advancing your career with professional development and passing exams. So great to see you here, Gene. Kavan is back. Now, Greg, you remember Kavan has contributed much to our programming this year.
Yeah.
The new abnormal. He was the first person that I think we saw to use that phrase.
Getting that PhD too. I want to know how that's going.
Yep.
I don't even know what that takes. I never even contemplated getting that kind of education. So I applaud that effort.
It was tough enough to get a 4-year degree if you're on my wavelength.
Some of us, we barely made it.
That's right. Kavan, great to see you here via LinkedIn. Looking forward to your contributions. Hey, Mark Preston, the manufacturing maven, I'll call him. I was trying to come up with a new nickname related to continuous improvement. Think on that, Greg. But Mark is a dear friend. He's done some big things in the manufacturing space, really, generally speaking, with driving lean and driving continuous improvement and pushing teams forward. So, Mark, hope this finds you well, and we got to catch up at some point soon. Jose Montoya is tuned in via LinkedIn. Now, Greg, have you caught any of his coffee and logistics shows?
I haven't, but I accepted the invite, so I get alerted. It's been a crazy last
time.
month of the year, or last couple months of the year. Yeah.
Well, Jose is hosting, or he may be coming up soon, our dear friend Bill Stankiewicz from Savannah.
Oh, yes.
Great individual, and I'm looking forward to that
Savannah?
conversation.
Are they getting together physically?
I don't think so. I think Jose is in Southern California, and I think it's going to be remote. But Jose, great to see you back here today. Let's see here. Shashi tuned in via LinkedIn from the UAE, where some really cool things are happening, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's all I can think about right now. I'm totally locked on the weather, Scott. Right? I'm thinking Southern California, great.
Well, here, this will unlock you off the weather. Eddie says barbecue. He's with
Darn
you.
Skippy. Yep.
So, Eddie.
Barbecue, Elvis, and FedEx.
Max is in Mexico City.
He is in Mexico City, so he's feeling about the same thing we are. Probably more like Denver.
Yeah.
Right? The highest city in North America, if I recall correctly, Mexico City.
We're going to check it out, see if you're right. Panam, great to see you here via LinkedIn, sending blessings and best wishes your way as well. All right, so one final thing before we crack the lid off of this unique episode of The Buzz, and that is, let's see here, about 100. So on top of the 252 episodes that we had for Supply Chain Now, we had about 100 different additional episodes across our other properties, including 13 episodes of Tequila Sunrise, Greg.
Wow. Yeah, that's almost an episode a day.
Right.
Every day of the year, right? 352 out of 365 days. What the heck were we doing the other day?
Seriously, slacking. David, great to see you here. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas to your way. Always enjoy your contributions. So I hope this finds you well up in Canada. Okay, speaking of that, we should before we move forward here, Peter Bollet is not going to be with us here today. Peter Bollet all night and all day, and just wishing him good vibes and prayers and best wishes. He shared with us earlier some family health issues, and it's a tough. It's always a tough time of year. It's even tougher when you're navigating through some of those things. So all the best to the Bollet family. Okay, so on a much lighter note, Greg, are you ready to dive in?
Yeah.
All right, so let's do just that. Let's see here. I'm going to share. So this first episode that we want to dive into here today, it featured Colin Yankee, Greg, Chief Supply Chain Officer with Tractor Supply Company. Now, Greg, before I get your favorite aspect of this conversation, I should say a little background. So Tractor Supply Company is what they call themselves the largest rural lifestyle retailer in the U.S. with 45,000 team members and almost 2,000 stores in 49 states. Man, you blink and they have become one of the dominant players. Now, before I share a couple of things I loved about our conversation that you and I had with Colin, Greg, what was your favorite thing about this episode here?
My favorite thing was our opportunity to continue to lobby that they bring back the commercials with the little characters who talked. No. I mean, I think what's really impressive is what they've done coming from a farm state. And many people probably are familiar with the co-op or farm and fleet concept, where you went and dumped your grain and bought your gloves and and feed and all that sort of thing. And they have consolidated that market into a single chain. I mean, I've worked with co-op, I've worked with Fleet and Farm, Mills Fleet Farm up in Wisconsin. As a matter of fact, is one of my favorite. Great place to get candy and a great place to go before a Packers game if it's going to rain, because they used to, I don't know if they still do. Somebody up there may know. They used to give out free rain ponchos.
Really?
Before the games, if the weather was going to be terrible. Yeah. But it's that kind of community spirit that Tractor Supply has created, and that they are, I would say, commercializing efficiently by creating a big chain. And that was really impressive from my standpoint. What about you?
Well, so I love how in this conversation here, Colin really simplified his role. He said, quote, "My whole job is to make decisions about trade-offs between time, inventory, cost, and service right across the chain," he said, end quote. And I love, when you can simplify it to that degree, given the breadth of the enterprise and what he does, I can only imagine working for him. And to that end, I love, he also talked about how he and his leadership team have been able to drive growth and drive innovation and drive execution on the company strategy. He said they rallied the team around this, remember STOMP, the comp phrase that he shared, and how really their approach to leadership and getting stuff done, GSD, is, quote, "communicating their intent to the front line." Communicating their intent is a phrase that they use there a lot. And then they kind of get out of the way and empower their team to execute. And, there's a beautiful simplicity to that clearly is working given all the things they're accomplishing. And, what we didn't talk about, Greg, and I can't remember if it was part of that conversation or if it was maybe one where we were talking about Tractor Supply and some of our other reporting, is how quickly they were able to pivot to enable, I want to say 6 weeks time, and you could get curbside pickup in every single store, if I got that right.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I mean, they're a very organized, a very efficient organization, and growing fast, as you said.
Right.
They just put a store in, and I don't live in a rural area. I live in a suburban area, but they just put a store in about 8 miles from my house, and it's kind of like Disneyland for Hicks. I love it. I really do. If you're looking to get Carhartt clothes or camo,
that's where to go.
Right? Or get your propane tank filled for your grill. That I just gave myself up as a propane user for grills.
Yes, Greg, you did. But so we've got one a couple miles down the road from us here. And even during the points of time, they'll have ducks and baby ducks and ducklings, and chickens, right there in the store. They got just about everything, including if you're a bird lover like me and you've got a bunch of bird feeders out, they've got a great selection. But hey,
they have squirrel-free ones too. Did you see that? The ones that
I did.
The ones all right. That defend against squirrels. We have derailed, Scott. But
we have derailed.
I would just say if you haven't been in a Tractor Supply store and you're near one, just go visit. It really is worth the visit. And to me, it's kind of a blast from the past going to the co-op or a Farm and Fleet store or something like that. But for other people, you get some insights into who the people are that are their customers. They're craftsy people. They're hunters and fisher persons. They are obviously in agriculture trades, but also you get and love their animals, because my gosh, half the store, it feels like, is feed or food, right? So
check that out. Episode 585. Again, Colin Yankee, who serves as the CSCO, Chief Supply Chain Officer with Tractor Supply Company. And one final thought there, I'm going to take some comments, is they're very passionate about one of our favorite communities, and that's the veteran community. They're very active with action-based leadership on supporting and hiring and giving forward to the veterans community. So great organization.
His leadership style is worth getting a look at as well as a point of reference for sure.
Agreed. Former U.S. Army officer, Colin Yankee. All right. Jose's talking about Bill Stankiewicz was on his live stream last Friday. So, hey, Jose, drop the link. We're big fans of yours, but also I've known Bill a long time. He's one of the nicest, most connected, smartest folks that I know. Always gives a shirt off his back. So drop that link if you can. Yes, David, we didn't. To Greg's question, what were we doing those other days? We weren't knocking out episodes.
Days of the year.
We are slackers. Max confirms Mexico City, yes, is the most elevated city in North America. Hey, one of our recent faves is back with us, Greg. Lamont Hardy. Good morning from San Diego. And look at these certifications, Greg.
Yeah.
All right. So I know Lean Six Sigma Green Belt is the last one there.
Oh, is that what that is? Okay.
It is. PMP is a project. It's probably a project management professional certification, if I'm not mistaken. What is the MPM, Lamont? And hey, if I got the
on that,
also, if I got the
what part of San Diego that
and hey, are you keeping it classy, Lamont?
That's right,
keeping it classy.
You know he's keeping it classy.
Oh,
he's wearing a suit.
Yes,
he's all dolled up.
And I bet, Greg, I was just like the 3,000th person to use that phrase as someone
he shared that all the time.
Right. Edward's tuned in from Peru via LinkedIn. Great to see you, Edward. Let's see.
The home
here.
of the Pisco Sour. It's the national drink.
Okay.
I know a lot about drinking. So just a fun fact: in Peru and in Chile, they serve the Pisco Sour both places, but there are two different styles for how you serve it, and there is quite a arguably friendly rivalry over which is the right way to do it.
Really?
Yeah, it's kind of like beans in chili or no.
Okay.
I probably shouldn't have gone there. Or what is it? Celery or not in clam chowder.
Okay. All right. Well, for those that know about clam chowder, I've seen some interviews where folks don't know what they're talking about when it comes to clam chowder. But hey, we'll leave that for another show.
I'm not even hungry, but
Kavan. So get this, Greg. Kavan says he just finished the first year of his PhD. He's looking forward to joining Supply Chain Now webinars more in the new year. I'm sure that first year is tough. Thanks a lot, Scott and Greg, all the SCN team members, for your efforts to provide these webinars. Man. Hey, Kavan.
Thank you.
Hey, yes, it's all about you. And we've loved your contributions on the live streams, on the webinars. I love what you put out on social media. Clearly, you're one of those folks that get it, and it's about elevating the industry. So, Kavan, keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
Eddie remembers the Ducks from Tractor Supply Company. Kavan corrects me. PMP, Project Management Professional. That's the name.
Okay, that's it.
And then finally, Lamont.
Masters of Project Management.
Man. So he lives in Scripps Ranch. Do you know that place, Greg?
Yeah.
Are you?
Yeah. I love San Diego. It's a great town. Beautiful.
Well, I'll tell you.
Easiest place in the world to be a meteorologist.
72 and sunny.
Yep.
Every day.
And in June, you'll have a marine inversion until noon. And then that will be going over the mountains. That'll burn off around noon. We'll have a beautiful day.
So, Lamont, clearly you are quite the project management guru. Congrats on, if you get one more acronym behind your name, you may be a doctor of supply chain, maybe. But Lamont, all the best. Thanks for tuning in here today. Okay, Greg, we got to keep going. So, folks, today is a special episode of the Supply Chain Buzz. If you would indulge us, Greg and I were reminiscing and enjoying each other's company and your company with us as we walk through some of our favorite episodes here today. Now, Greg, this probably surprises nobody with this next one, which was truly a master class in leadership and supply chain with one of our all-time faves, Sandra McQuillan. Greg, what did you love about this one?
Like so many people, I would put Sandra and probably Rick McDonald at the very top in terms of leadership, my most admired leadership styles. And Sandra exudes that always, right? I cannot remember. I think this was in the old Supply Chain Now radio days, Scott. She said, if you want to talk supply chain, come on down. And that's pretty much the way she operates. I mean, we've had some opportunities, both you and I, to talk to her professionally and personally, and then with some of the companies that I've worked with who talk to her and some of her team. You can just see the culture that she has created there for her team, right? So it's powerful stuff.
Agreed. And I'm sorry for the zoom in there, Greg. I hit the wrong button as I was trying to change the graphics.
It's okay. I look much better from across the street.
Well, hey, so Sandra, remarkable. First off, for a very important background, her company, Mondelez, is responsible for making our beloved Oreos. So enough said, right, Greg?
Yeah, it's pretty important.
54,000. I checked this out. 54,000 team members across the globe. I didn't realize Mondelez was quite that big. As I mentioned, masterclass. There's not much not to love about what Sandra shared here in episode 615.
Right.
So one of her quotes, you remember this one, Greg? Quote: "You can be as technically brilliant as you can be, but if you can't make it work with other people, then what's the point?" End quote. I love that. And then she even indulged us, Greg, if you recall. I can only imagine how tough time is on her schedule, right? So, we were right at the hour point, and we're like, hey, we want to ask you about 10 things. What's 10 things that chief supply chain officers need to do to be successful? She I don't think she missed a beat.
Stayed after class.
She stayed after class. It's true. And one of the most important things shouldn't surprise anybody, right? And that's saying no. You got to be able to say no. You got to be able to put your foot down. And whether it is opportunities or projects or even rewards and recognition, you can't do everything, because if you try to do everything, you're not going to do anything. And that was one of the things that she left with us on that episode 615. So, Greg, I'm going to give you the last word about one of our favorite all-time people. Leaders, of course, supply chain pro guru, of course, but she's one of our favorite people.
Yeah, I don't know what to say. Her personal resilience is something to be admired, and just what she's done both to accomplish things at the companies she's worked with and to nurture and enable additional great leaders at Mondelez it's just so obvious when you talk with the folks that work with her.
Right.
So yeah, my suggestion would be not just 615, but listen to any episode that Sandra is in, and you can search her in our library on the site, and just get a taste for her, not just energy and leadership capability, but for her incredible skill as a leader and a supply chain practitioner. She knows how to do it right, and she makes sure that gets perpetuated throughout her organization.
Agreed.
As evidenced by, I think, and I didn't think to do it again, but as evidenced by the Oreo aisle that I showed on a previous episode, where I probably should have panned out and showed all the other products that were empty on either side of that. But
right.
the Oreo and Mondelez products were completely in stock and beautifully faced by whomever worked at that Kroger store. So,
well, I've met Sandra in person the first time that she appeared on Supply Chain Now, and I got to tell you, Greg, it's stuck with me since then. The charisma, the empathy, but also the approachability of Sandra there. When I met her in person, as we conducted our first interview, at the time she was with Kimberly Clark, and you could just tell that she'd been there and done it, and but also was very unique. So hey, y'all check that out. That was 615's one. To Greg's point, she's appeared with us several times, and she's always just a stroke of brilliance. So let's keep driving for the sake of time. And everybody, we are today a special episode of The Buzz. We're going through some of our favorite episodes here today. Now, Greg, I'm a pony up here, and as you may know, I'm a huge space nerd, right?
Yes.
I'm fascinated with all things related to space, including the James Webb Telescope, which launches, I think, next week, in the next week or two. And get this, Greg, and we'll get to this episode in just a second, but I was watching something over the weekend. I didn't realize that the Hubble telescope is inside of Moon's orbit, right? So it's between, from an altitude standpoint, it's between the Earth and the Moon. Well, the James Webb Telescope, not only is it bigger, I believe, than the Hubble, more powerful, but also the orbit is going to be, I think, 1 million miles out, so well past the Moon. So It's going to be closer to everything it's looking at. It's gonna. Many scientists are saying it's gonna change how we've always looked at the universe, including the origin of it all. So I'm really excited about what's to come. Have you been tracking this James Webb Telescope at all? Not on your radar?
Never even heard of it, but that's pretty impressive.
Just wait till the images. There's
and
of course
this NASA? I mean,
they're kind of in the modern NASA way. They're contracting through a lot of third parties, but I think it's the Jet Propulsion organization. NASA was a big part of building it, and they're leaning on a lot of different agencies to help get it up into orbit and whatnot.
Interesting.
And it's, man, they're gonna have to be everything. Every scientist as part of the project is worried about once they get it up there, how it's got to unfurl everything. Because if one little thing goes wrong, there's no one, unlike Hubble, where you could get up there and those brave astronauts fixed it and changed life as we knew it and how we view the universe. That will not be an option as to where it's orbiting. So anyway, I digress, folks. I told y'all.
Send WD-40.
Right, and duct tape. You can fix anything with those two things.
Right.
All right, so kidding aside, Greg, you and I hosted Sherika Sanders, PhD, who is with Manor Polymers. We hosted her for a live stream. She's been with us a couple of times. But Greg, I'll go first this time. Her story, story about working on the Space Shuttle Columbia disaster. The investigation went into that and how they could figure out what happened and then ensure it never happens again.
Right.
Man, that was palpable. The feedback we were getting as she was sharing that and how she painted that picture of sharing her findings with that room full of NASA, the extended NASA family, and how powerful, how much of an impact that had on even the families and the work family and the human family of those that we lost as part of that horrible disaster. She had a great quote here. She said, quote, "I'm not just mixing up stuff in the lab. I'm doing things to give people hope and to encourage people to have a great impact on the world," end quote. How about that for a sense of purpose? Final two other quick things. Very passionate, especially about mentoring others, in particular women interested in STEM careers. And if you remember, Greg, one of my favorite other parts of that interview was when asked by one of our Skybox members from the comments about career advice. You remember, Greg, she said, "Do the work." It was like a mantra. Don't cut any corners. Do the work. You want to do this? Do the work. I mean, it was really such a really cool back and forth that we had with Sherika Sanders, PhD. But what was your favorite part about this episode?
Well, I mean, I think it started with her family, right? I mean, that's what I thought was so really impressive. If she could kind of trace it all the way back to her relationship with her dad and how that encouraged and enabled her to do a lot of what she was doing. She also did affirm to us, as a rocket scientist herself, she did affirm to us that supply chain is not, in fact, rocket science. So, but I think when she talked about presenting the findings to the families of the Columbia crew and the response that those people had and what it meant to her, and that it, even though she had been working on it significantly, the impact that had on her and made her realize the kind of impact she was having or creating. I think just that very open, honest sharing was really inspirational, among all other things. I mean, when you're talking to somebody that is that much more educated and intelligent than you, there are a lot of things that you could take away. Right. There's just not a lot you can absorb because they're talking way up here.
You're right. In the James Webb Telescope orbit, right?
Yeah.
But fascinating conversation. Y'all check out.
We're in low orbit with Elon Musk and right. Richard Branson. We can't even contemplate that orbit.
We sure can't. You're not lying there, and I like the picture you paint. Those are just a couple of our favorite things about sitting down with Sherika Sanders, PhD. So y'all check that out. That is episode 622. Now, Greg, we're moving into a Tequila Sunrise, one of our favorite episodes of all time, Tequila Sunrise. Let me tee this up. And then since you were part of this, I wasn't part of this conversation. I'll let you kind of walk us through. So Rob and Greg is CEO of RoadSync, and that's I guess you still call it a startup. Regardless, they're on the move, early stage company. They focus on simplifying payments across supply chain, especially logistics payments, be it at the dock door or over the road.
Right.
And I'll tell you, she was brilliant. But Greg, what was your take on this conversation that you had with Robin?
Well, I mean, there were so many things. One is she was so what do I want to say? Ruthlessly efficient throughout this process. She understood the process of raising funding. So RoadSync is a fintech company, right? As Scott, you said, how do you get paid when you've made that delivery, right? And sometimes it's very formal, and sometimes it's, literally a scan of a barcode or something like that gets you paid, and they handle all of that. But her expertise in navigating the difficult process of getting to this was a very large funding round, about $30 million. So getting to that level of funding is arguably startup, right? But it's a new stage of startup. I mean, it's a really accelerating stage of the company. And she basically wrested this company from the ashes. I mean, it had been decimated by the prior founders. She was brought in by the current investors and basically reconstituted the company and got it back on a growth path, got it in a good position in the marketplace, and got it prepared and eligible for funding that is currently helping this company go the extra mile, if you will, but get to the next level of growth and performance. So I don't know. I think the thing that was that was so interesting about it was that she was at once very open about being, I don't want to say fearful, maybe mindful, but understanding the position that she was in and putting herself and the company in by raising this money, but very resolute in assuring that she got the process done. I mean, she knew that the weight doesn't come off when you get $30 million of investment. The weight presses down even harder because now you have sold your vision of your company and you have to deliver against that. And she was very, very mindful of that. Yep. I think, one of the things that and some of this was in this episode and some was in a meeting we had about the episode, but she felt the appropriate amount of stress and obligation to the investors, having been in those types of conversations with and as an entrepreneur myself, I think she felt the appropriate amount of obligation there. So,
well, so what I saw, actually, I was in the skyboxes for this episode here,
that.
and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed commenting. I enjoy, as I recall, James Malley was bringing some sense of humor to the conversation. But what stood out to me is how her disposition during the conversation, right? Down to earth, genuine, but she wasn't faking the funk on the NASA dunk. She was bringing it. She'd been there. She'd done it. She's in the trenches, driving the growth of RoadSync. I loved how she talked about how she constantly sees founders overlooking their obligation to investigate potential investors, right? Not doing the due diligence on the investors, right? Maybe they were enamored with funding, maybe in their eyes. She really touted how important that is. She talked about practicing her pitches. I think there was her pitches on her kids. Yep. And how tough her kids were on her with questions.
Oh my gosh, I forgot about that. That is right.
And then one final thing that I picked up on, there was so much to love about this conversation, is when things shifted over to Zoom and you didn't have the advantage of seeing all the different feedback and body language or whatever. One of her best practices, or teams maybe, is bringing someone on the call from her side just to be an observer. You're picking up on the verbal feedback and the nonverbal feedback And that was kind of their really important job through the course of the conversation. That is wonderful, actionable advice. So, and she was full of it, wasn't she?
Yeah, she was. And I mean, that's what makes this episode. This was a live episode, right? She is one of the judges of Take Your Shot, where most of the time entrepreneurs are pitching us what's so great about their company and how they intend to raise money and change things in the industry. And she's been such an incredible value as a judge. And she had just raised this round, and she agreed to, a month later, after having raised this round of funding, to come back on the show and kind of share that with us. So I think that was a really a helpful and bold move. It's hugely helpful for anyone who is raising funding. And you're right. One of the takeaways, which I can't believe I forgot this, one of the takeaways is find somebody who you know well enough to have them ruthlessly evaluate your pitch, because that's somebody that cares enough to, let you know how to do it, how to get to your best discussion about the vision for your company.
Punch in the nose. That's a punch in the nose with
your
love.
Kids, your best friends, drinking buddies, whoever, right?
So y'all check out Robin Gregg with Road Sync, who appeared on Tequila Sunrise. And to make things easy with each of these episodes, we've dropped it in the comments, and you can also use the library tool at supplychainnow.com to find the episode very easily. Okay. So Greg, we got to move right along. You and I we're talking too much. We always do. We experience these conversations with these wonderful people firsthand, and it's really easy to go on with what they shared and really how much of a blast we had with all these folks. Yeah. But this next one is going to be special, and Greg, I thoroughly enjoyed the one and only, the incomparable Delaney White joining you for a special episode of Tequila Sunrise. Now, let me just share, and this is not pandering. I've had a chance, of course, to work alongside the one and only Greg White, and I've had some opportunities to rub elbows in person and afar with Delaney. And I'll tell you, she is a chip off the good old block. Incredibly talented, speaks beyond her years, and does so in a way, we all know probably some great communicators in our circles and our networks, I guess. Man, she has got your knack for clearly communicating exactly what she wants to share. And Chipper Jones, the good old Brave. I got my Braves shirt on today. Chipper Jones was a chip off the block, which is where the nickname originated. Now he went on to be a Hall of Famer. And Delaney, Greg, I tell you, scouts, they're high on Delaney White. But I'll stop there. I've got a couple of things I want to share about the episode. But what stood out to you here in your conversation with your daughter?
Oh, she's better than I am. And she's probably one of those people we'll all be working for one day. I've said that since she was a very little kid. She's a voracious reader, which has made her an incredible writer and verbal communicator. And, during the pandemic, or during the housing shortage exacerbated by the pandemic, we got to watch her work, and it is truly amazing to see. And that's what inspired this episode. So at the time, she worked for a company here in Atlanta called Field Edge. And she wasn't looking for a job, but somebody she had worked with saw the potential in her. She was doing a lead generation job, and they thought she should be an account executive, an actual salesperson. So they dragged her away to this company called Deal, D-E-E-L. And that all happened after this episode. But during that episode, she was 100% sold out for Field Edge, as you can see in the episode, but also very mindful. One of the things we talked about was, how do you engage Gen Z, and kind of how she came up, like we do on so many episodes. How did you get to where you are? And it was really interesting to look at it from kind of a 60 Minutes perspective instead of from a dad perspective, and kind of analyze it argue somewhat objectively anyway. Yeah, and of course I'm very proud of her, and she's done great things, and she'll continue to, and I'm not kidding. We will all either wind up working for her or electing her president, something like that. Yeah, it was really, really impressive how thoughtful, how mindful, how intentional she is. She has a very clear idea about what to do with her career. I mean, this wasn't even that much about supply chain. It was just mostly about her generation and about, the things that Gen Z and millennials are looking for in the workplace. And wow, I mean, when you look back on it,
that makes it about supply chain, right?
Considering the job environment today, right?
Agreed. All of that makes it about supply chain. It makes it about global business, right? Because nothing is going to happen without those talented folks from those generations on your team,
right?
Leading, doing, innovating. So I'll tell you what I would add to this. And as I mentioned, folks, these are some of our favorite interviews, favorite episodes. She gave advice about chasing your passion, right? And truly identifying what you want to do in life and then going after it with reckless abandon. And she thought, I think, can't remember the exact quote, but she thought law school is what she really wanted to do. But when she got down to it and really started examining and getting honest with herself, that's not what she wanted to do. And I would argue that many other folks, to generalize, allow others and society to dictate their journeys in life and what they do. And so it's really refreshing. And I think it was a timely lesson to hear from Delaney, who put her fate and her destiny and her journey in her own hands and made her own decisions about what she was going to do in life. And we need more. I would just encourage you, if you haven't, to any of our listeners, if you hadn't had a chance to really uncover your own passion with where you want to spend the rest of your life, what you want to be doing, man, listen to Delaney. It might help you find it. All right. So Greg, we could probably talk about this episode as many of these for the next several hours, but I'll give you one final word about this special Tequila Sunrise episode with Delaney White.
Yeah, I think everyone should probably interview their kids like this, maybe just really objectively, almost I'll give you the questions, kind of have an interviews process for your kids and try to do it objectively. I think you will be amazed at what you find. And frankly, it'll probably make you feel better about your parenting abilities. I can tell you it did me. But honestly, all you do is build a platform and they build upon that. So, that's the other thing you have to recognize is you just point them the right direction, give them some direction, and they'll find their way. So
love that, Greg.
That's probably the most important thing that I took away from it is, hey, we did okay.
I love that. And I love your suggestion there to all parents out there. Sit down and interview your kids. In fact, I'm going to do that during the break between now, whatever break there is between now and New Year's. I've done that occasionally in the past, and I love that idea of revisiting that. Sharing a couple of comments here. Hey, this is Korai Koze, our dear friend from Gartner, who's also a great interview and guest. He says he's on PTO, but can't stop, as he corrects, watching you guys with my noon tea against cold weather. Great job as always. Korai, hope this finds you well, and I hope we are going to be collaborating on something around the corner. So stay tuned.
He's a new adjunct professor. That's right.
Well, so that, and I think that's out in the public, right? I think because you're speaking to that.
He announced that on LinkedIn. Yeah.
Right. And you're going to be, I think, addressing his students. But Greg, maybe I hadn't even told you. I think we may be collaborating with Korai on another of our different initiatives here. We'll see. But cool. Korai, hopefully you're staying warm and staying healthy and getting some good downtime over the break. Jose, you missed that episode with Greg's daughter. Yes, we dropped the link in the comments. We'd love for you to check it out. And I also saw that you dropped the link of your conversation with Bill Stankiewicz, which already has occurred. You dropped that link in our comments as well. So thank you for sharing. Yeah. Margot. I love it. Oh gosh, Margo, you're gonna have
Man,
to
do you
join
think
us.
your parents knew that that was what your calling would be when you were born? They
Man,
totally set that up, didn't they?
maybe so. Maybe so. I don't know.
Margot
They
Margot.
they could have named her Tate, maybe Freight Tate, or
Oh,
Tate
that's
Freight. But
good.
but
That's
hope
good.
you're all
What
having
rhymes with supply chain?
a magnificent Monday. Supply chain for the win. Cargo Margo says.
Yeah,
Thanks so much for joining us via LinkedIn. Okay, so Greg,
that sounds like a YouTube channel. I wonder if she's got a YouTube channel. And
right.
Cargo Margo.
Cargo Margo. All right, so I think we have just one more episode, no, two more episodes that we're going to share really quick, and then we're going to close with some of your POV on what's going on in the ports. So we're going to try to get through all of that in the next 10 minutes or so. But this was a special episode. So speaking of Gartner, which Karak Jose is part of, we have a monthly show with our dear friend Mike Griswold, one of the earliest guests on Supply Chain Now at that. But Greg, he and I interviewed this gentleman here. This is Scott Mann. He's a retired Army officer in Green Beret. And at the time, he was helping folks navigate out of Afghanistan. So there's a couple things here. Y'all gonna have to go back and check out this episode. I got a lot of feedback, Greg, from folks that are outside of supply chain. My mother-in-law, Val Midkiff, saw this and was sharing it with some folks in her network. I heard from some of my family members. This really is a powerful testimony and very timely. Mr. Mann shared this as he was talking about helping Nizam, who was one of his translators when he was in country, helping to get Nizam out of Afghanistan. And you can imagine the pressure and the timing and the immediacy of it all and the table stakes, right? Life and death. So he came up with this, hey, name it, frame it, and tame it. Hashtag save Nizam. That was the number one, that was the mission, right? And then he talked about, and he was actually using a whiteboard. It's one of our few live streams where we had camera folks in where he was. He was mapping out how first thing, let's identify all the challenges, all the roadblocks, the geography, the physical, literal roadblocks between where Nizam was and the airport, right? Where folks were jumping on planes and getting out. And then he also shared how important really engaging your network. In this case, and I may get this wrong, a Pashto, I think, is one of the dialects in Afghanistan. I say that right, Greg? Pashto?
I think that's right. Yeah.
Okay.
Pashto,
Well,
Pashto. Yeah.
So to navigate with what language Nizam spoke and where he had to get through to get into the airport, they had to find a Pashto speaking taxi driver, and they had him in his network, thankfully. And then he really spoke to that when it comes to networking and building those relationships, which is there's so much takeaway there for supply chain. He said, quote, build trust when risk is low, cash it in when it is high, end quote. I love that because that's like a version, one of my favorite quotes of all time is Harvey Mackay, dig your well before you're thirsty. Right. And Greg, as you know, with what we've seen over the last couple of years, gosh, if you haven't invested in those relationships, if you haven't already done some of your homework and added to your network, when something broke, a relationship or a supply relationship broke, what did you say, Greg? There's no making new friends.
It's too late to make friends now. I think we saw someone say that early on in the pandemic, right? If you have mistreated paraphrasing here, but if you've mistreated your suppliers up to this point, it's too late to make friends now because you're in need, right? But
Love it.
I mean, that's exactly the same sentiment that Colonel Mann had, and that is, like you said, dig your well before you're thirsty, build those relationships in times of low risk and leverage them in times of high risk. So there's, it's just, I mean, it's funny that needs to be said, but I guess in some cases it does. But yeah, clearly that was a very noble mission. And the logistics, frankly, the logistics of that exit, right, was substantial.
Agreed. Yeah, truly. I mean, life and death. I mean, to hear him, and it's tough to convey kind of because this was at the height. This is when, this was back in, I want to say late August, September, when we were interviewing Colonel Mann, and man, life and death. That's what these supply chain missions were all about. It's just fascinating. I stepped away for a second, Greg, because he's got a book, and I think he's also making a movie out of some of what he did with the Army. And the book here is Game Changers: Going Local to Defeat Violent Extremists. And one of the last things I'll share about that interview with Scott Mann is, as a Green Beret, what I didn't realize, I was Air Force, I was a data analyst in Air Force, not Special Forces. I didn't realize a big part of the Green Berets' overall methodology is to get in and build strong bridges with these local communities, being able to talk their language, being able to deliver what they needed so they can build these relationships to do to do something greater in the bigger picture. Had no idea. It makes a lot of sense now, especially to see what he was doing with to save Nizam. But that aspect of Green Berets operations and overall methodology was lost on me. Your final comment here about Scott Mann.
I mean, I think this is, it's worth hearing to make the reality of the hardship hit home.
Yeah.
We saw it, at least here in the States, we saw a lot on television. We saw a lot for just a very short time, because it was not in our nation's best interest to really cover this. But in other countries around the world, I know it has been covered very well. But if you're from here in the States, it's worthwhile to hear what this adventure was like, to get a picture of just how serious the situation is over there.
Yeah, so. Agreed. And transparency and sunshine and the spotlight into these things. That's how we all get better, right? That's how we all get better. So I hope we continue to review, especially the end of operations there, and how all that transpired and how the certain decisions were made. So, all right. So on a much, much lighter note, I want to keep moving here. So one of our friends, one of our favorites, PVH, Patrick Van Hull. You remember old PVH, Greg, right?
That's right. I've never seen him call himself PVH before. I thought only you did that. You kind of coined that, I thought.
Well, I think it's cool, and I know Patrick's cool, and he is in the know. He's part of the 09 team.
09,
I think.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And he likes something you shared here, Greg. Build the platform and let them build on that. When you're talking about your daughter, Delaney, I think that's a great T-shirtism from today, Greg.
Wow, I don't think I've ever coined a T-shirt before. We've had a lot of people coin some T-shirts.
Yes, we have. Going back and this year, and even going back further. But I love that as well. And I think it's important. I would argue, and just thinking out loud here, one of the operative words here is let them build it. Let them. If we think about what's important to us as parents, right? Our kids may not care anything about supply chain. They may not care anything about, digital media. What are their passions, right? Help them discover that. Help them, as you put it, build that engine, that platform, and then let them build on top of it. So that's very well said here today, Greg.
Well, thank you. I mean, it's not, it's not easy to do. It's easy to say. It's not easy to do. I can affirm that. But I can tell you that, at some point, and I don't remember when we started saying this, my wife and I said, look, these kids, they're fully baked now. We're not parenting now. We're coaching, right? It's more, and we sit down and have kind of strategy sessions with them. Strategy's probably overstating it, but Delaney wants to be an executive. So I'm helping her navigate, how to present things. She's kind of one of the cultural leaders of her new company. So trying to help her position things effectively and deal with the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company, things like that. But whatever you can do to coach your kids, ask them what they want to do or where they want to go, and then give them any insight. You don't have to give them the answer, just give them any insight to help them have something to think about as they plot their course.
Love that. All right, we're gonna have to have Delaney on a live stream. So Delaney, your ears may be burning quite a bit here today. All right, so one final episode, and then Greg, you're gonna have to give us kind of a Reader's Digest version. I got to update that term, but what you shared earlier today on LinkedIn. So I had the great opportunity of interviewing one-on-one Minda Harts, who is author of The Memo, and her latest book is Right Within. Had a blast with Minda. On a more human and fun level. We both love grits. We must have talked 20 minutes just about our mutual love of grits.
Al dente or?
Oh gosh. We talked about, in particular, I remember us talking about, depending on where you grow up, you may have 3 types of grits at your grocery store, including one of those 3 is instant grits, maybe 2 or 3. And then at other places where you grow up, you might have an aisle dedicated to a full grits selection. So, but anyway, I'd worked with Minda, Greg, a couple of years, I don't know, 18 months or so on a program where she really stood out, thought she was exceptional. She shared this phrase, hey, this was in the beginnings of the remote working, in the beginnings of the truly global pandemic, and she called out how important it is for leaders to let's make work for everyone, and really speaking to how all your team members need different things, and perhaps compounded when you take it remote, right? So it was really cool to interview Minda, learn more about her journey, her fight for equity in the workplace, particularly on behalf of women of color. So at the core of all of this, Greg, she shared her purpose with me, and she said, quote, "The why is knowing that if I continue doing this work, then I leave a better workplace than I inherited." And she also pointed out, I can't do it quite as eloquently as Minda does, but she pointed out how as she was entering the workplace and inheriting that environment, it was on the shoulders of folks that had been fighting for what she inherited. So she's very passionate about continuing the work that fuels that change, and while also recognizing, honoring all the fight and the sacrifice that had taken place up to this point. So I'm not sure if you were able to catch that episode, Greg. Your quick thoughts.
But I'm glad you raised that one, because now I have one I need to watch.
Please. Yeah, you got to. Minda is a dynamo. All these individuals are dynamos, but that's why one of the reasons why they're some of our favorites. But Minda, I tell you, she has been on the move. I think Right Within is just one of about 27 projects that she is currently part of. Check them out. Her conversation with me is episode 770. And I think we just dropped that in the notes as well. Okay. Greg, we're 3 minutes over, but if you ask us any, that shouldn't surprise us, because what you and I can probably, I'll speak for myself, what I can talk most about are all of these, is the best part of my job, where I get to sit down with some of the world's most intriguing, most exceptional, extraordinary, most capable people in the world that are out there driving change, right? I could talk about this till the cows come home. So naturally we're gonna spill over a little bit, but I get to do that sitting beside someone that fits all of that. That's the one and only Greg White. So on that note, Greg, I love when you draw, and folks, if you're not connected with or at least following Greg White on LinkedIn, do yourself a huge favor and do that, because he drops things like he dropped earlier today, where he tells it like it is, and with humor, which is so important. So Greg, tell us about this fascinating new thing called let's see here, the information superhighway.
So first, let me just go back to what you were saying. Think about how many people you've talked to, many, many more over the years, who would otherwise be unheard or be considered just an average Joe or Jane, right? That do truly have an exceptional viewpoint on the world, and everyone has their own viewpoint on the world, most of them rational, and and I think it's great that we get to deal with people who would otherwise be, including us, by the way, who would otherwise be completely obscure, but are now because of this medium have the ability to contribute to the greatness of the world. And I think, it's really rewarding to be able to do that. And every time we do it, I think, who would have ever, in some of these cases, who would have ever asked to talk to these folks, right? I mean, and to get that word out to the world, not just to their profession or just a small trade show or something like that, to get that word out to the world is really an honor. So that said, yes, people do get to hear my opinion. I'm going to say that they choose to. That's what I'm going to say. But yeah, today I was just struck. I got to tell you, Scott. So that is an article that I usually comment on, and I usually spend about 10 or 20 minutes writing the summary of whatever I've read in a particular article. So I do these supply chain summaries Monday, Wednesday, and Friday morning. They come out. If you follow me, then you'll be alerted whenever that posts and whenever I add the summary to it. So so today I probably wouldn't have said anything except that they said information superhighway. And I thought, when was that word last used? I literally had to look it up, Scott. First used in 1978.
Wow.
By Al Gore when he was then, I think, a junior senator in Tennessee. And probably last used in 1992 during the presidential election in 1992. I was just stunned by the fact that this is where we are with governmental agencies, that they are talking about 40 and 50-year-old terms to bring themselves up to this time in supply chain. And it was stunning. And it frankly, threw the entirety of, from my standpoint, it threw the entirety of their initiative into question immediately. Right? How could they have the right perspective if they're using terminology like that? Not to mention the ports are decades and decades behind in using technology, and they are the cause of this issue, of the issues we have with backups in the ports and with containers being misplaced and things like that. And they've always been that. Right. And all this pandemic has done, and all this post-pandemic furor around e-commerce and imports and exports, all that has done is exacerbate a problem that has always existed in the ports. Inefficiency, ineffectiveness, corruption, lack of transparency, absolutely abject failure in terms of execution. And it's, it's kind of through every aspect of moving these containers, but it frankly scared the hell out of me that they would take their perspective for a new data source for people in the supply chain, when there are so many data sources out there that create transparency and so many more competent people doing it. And then they would further select an organization that pretty much only does governmental projects, which, we've seen how that goes. Go to your local DMV, unless it's my local DMV, which is amazingly efficient. But I even threw the example of this is the kind of thing we're going to get, the uspto.gov, right? I threw that link in there. Just try to find your own company in that. Just go to their search bar, try to find your own company. And it scared me, frankly, but still I am somehow optimistic that we can overcome this. And I think what will ultimately happen is, like many regulatory or government spec'd kind of initiatives, it will be ignored, underpinned, overlaid, whatever. They might use the original data source, but the interface will likely not be very effective. We've seen that over and over and over again, but hopefully they can at least provide a data source that allows people to use their adequate tools to create some transparency. So I was triggered, I guess you could say. And I let the ports have it. And you know, government in general have it. And I think that this is one thing that we as supply chain professionals need to do is we need to rely on one another. We need to rely on people who really know, not people who are scrambling to save face or scrambling to get votes or scrambling to appease their constituency, right? We have to maintain the integrity of being supply chain professionals, thinking forward, thinking about the big picture, thinking beyond ourselves and our next job, and somehow overcome this governmental enablement and intervention, and still make this supply chain work. My greatest fear in the back of my mind, which I couldn't even write down, was that this could make things worse, not better. And
wow.
I can't help but have that concern because, as we've seen so many times, these are often ill thought out, pandering for votes type of initiatives, or saving a job.
Right.
And just like the highways, when they are built, they're obsolete by the time they're done. So this is a great concern that I have. And I know that we can overcome it, but it's definitely something that just, I don't know, it just hit me this morning. And
well,
I was in the mood to speak about it. Actually, Scott, I probably erased 2/3 of what I wrote because I thought that's too damning of an indictment, even.
Too much gasoline. Got to pull back a little bit.
Yeah, right.
Well, I love these summaries that you put out 3 or 4 times a week because it's so different than what you see elsewhere. It's not just a reporting or it's not just an accounting of what's taking place. It is it's not just infused. It focuses on the real story and, hey, this is what you're not getting. This is what needs to happen. This is and challenging people, challenging viewpoints, whether they're common assumptions or commonly held, or maybe they're just in the blind spot. So keep it coming, Greg, because as we all know, back to the topic at hand, it is a huge, glaring, momentous, challenging set of circumstances in terms of how the ports operate here. And look, we're not taking anything away. There's a bunch of great, hardworking folks that in many cases, kind of in Savannah, kind of in a vacuum, they operate at a very high level. However, as the pandemic has really brought to bear how ports operate elsewhere, and the visibility and information sharing amongst all the different stakeholders, we've got to get there, right, and beyond is one of the things I'm hearing you say, Greg. So,
well, we did it with the air traffic safety, right, tool set. It took us 4 decades, but we did it, right? I mean, so it can be done. It cannot be done efficiently or effectively without intervention by the government, unfortunately. I mean, we've proven that over and over and over again, but it can be done, and we know it will ultimately. Right. But in the meantime, it causes a lot of pain, right? And to your point on these things, look, when we were kids, Scott, we used to get both sides of the story. Right. I was just reading something about Joe Manchin and what the reporter chose to say, because Joe Manchin, I think he said he's a no on the Build Back Better bill. And what the reporter chose to say was Goldman Sachs downgrades the growth number in the economy, the U.S. economy, because of that. What they didn't say was that will also not cost $3 trillion worth of taxpayer money over the course of the next 20 years. So what I think we need is more people to get stories like we used to get them. They would say both of those things in a story, not I don't like Joe Manchin, so I'm going to give this side of the story. They would say, these are the facts of the story. Make your own decision, right? Yep. And that's what I try to do, is give people the facts of what's being said, or sometimes what's not being said, and let them make their own decision, make their own judgment.
Transparency, sunshine, spotlight. That's what's going to help us get through some of the greatest challenges that face us now. So I love that. Keep it coming, Greg. Lamont's going to get the final word here. He says, Greg, I saw your post today. You're 100% right. The government is always behind the civilian sector, and they like to reinvent the wheel. I wish the government would consult with industry professionals before pulling the strings on the future state of supply chain and logistics operations.
Amen to that. You can write that down.
Great.
Good.
Well said, Lamont.
Yeah, well said, Lamont.
Well said, Greg. And we are 16 minutes over. Hey, we love
Holy mackerel.
We love these conversations. Greg, I'm glad we wrapped on your supply chain summary today. We've dropped that link, folks, in the comments. And if you're listening to the replay and you don't have access to the comments, hey, look up Greg White, Greg S. White on LinkedIn, and you'll be able to connect with him there. All right. So, folks, also check out these past episodes. I hope you enjoy them as well as I have. Greg, I'm wishing you and your family, gosh, we're 5 days away from Christmas Day, all kinds of special holidays this time of year. Got New Year's poking its head out around the corner. I'm wishing you and the White household, hope you have a wonderful holiday season.
Yeah, thank you. And likewise, and same to you and your crew. You still have to get up at 5:30 in the morning or whenever your kids
5:30.
get up.
5:30 is sleeping in on Christmas Day in this household, Greg. We'll be up at, probably 4 o'clock between the dogs and the kids. But hey, I love it. I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't change a single thing.
Well, I'm going to be interested. This will be the first Christmas that we won't have all of our daughters staying over at the house. They're married off or, living far enough away that they can do that. They'll come over during the day. So it's going to be a really interesting transition. But yeah. And to everyone out there, Merry Christmas, or if your holidays have already passed, very early this year, if you celebrate Hanukkah, as one of my cousins does.
Yes.
So, but yeah, Merry Christmas to everybody out there, and enjoy the rest of the week. We got a little bit of an early present, Scott. We got 3 extra football games after Sunday this week.
How about that?
Yet another upside of COVID, if you can say such a thing, right?
Yeah, you got to look for the silver linings for sure.
Amen.
All right, everybody. Hope you have a wonderfully successful close to the year, and I hope your new year gets off on the right foot. We will not be with you next Monday. The Buzz is taking the 27th of December off, but we'll see you again on January 3rd, and several points in between now and then. Wishing you all the best. But folks, hey, now's the time of year. Hey, plan your strategy, especially now. Plan your strategy to do good, to give forward, and to be the change that's needed. And on that note, happy New Year. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas, everybody. We'll see you next time right back here on Supply Chain Now. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.